Good evening, welcome to a new broadcast of your favorite program, UGC Reflected Edition. Today we have two special guests, so let's welcome to our first guest, Tatiana. Tatiana, how are you doing today?
Hello, Jose. I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here.
We're also very excited to have you here now. Let's welcome our next guest, Armando. Armando, how are you today? Hi, Jose. I'm so cheerful to be here. Thank you so much for your invitation. Awesome, Tatiana and Armando. So let's begin. So we're going to introduce our topic for today. So, Tatiana, could you please let me know what do you think is a test and what is the role of assessment in language teaching?
Well, Jose, that's a nice question. I consider that a test is used to examine someone's knowledge of something to determine if the person knows what the person has learned. Also, it measures the level of skill or knowledge that has been reached during the learning process. For that reason, the language testing plays an important role in the teaching learning process because it helps the language teachers to place students at their appropriate level. Also, it helps to diagnose the students' strengths or weaknesses, and also it helps to evaluate their performance during and at the end of the course. Moreover, the language testing can aid in the planning of administration of the language programs. Also, it seems to be the key issue because the success or failure or any language program depends on planning and the language testing as well.
Interesting, Tatiana. So, we're going to continue with the next question, okay? So, what are the principles of language assessment?
Well, Jose, there are five principles that are immersed in the language teaching assessment. So the first one is practicality. That is an effective test that is practical when it's not excessively expensive, stays within appropriate time constraints, is relatively easy to administer, and has a scoring evaluation procedure that is specific, and also the time is efficient. The second principle is reliability. The reliability is important because it measures the trust of a test, and also it refers to the consistency of the scores. On the other hand, a test could be more reliable depending on the length and the items will be evaluated. One example of a test reliable could be the IELTS or the TOEFL. The third principle is validity, that it refers to a tool that helps in measure the accuracy of a test for a particular situation. It depends on their purposes and the characteristics that is supposed to evaluate. One example of this kind of test is a crossword. The fourth principle is authenticity. So, an assessment is authentic when students apply their acquired knowledge to develop a task. The test should be realistic, require judgment and innovation. The teachers need to separate them from traditional tasks. For instance, an authentic assessment could be a debate or a research project or presentations. The fifth principle is the washback or backwash. So, this is the effect of testing on teaching. It is positive if the test results in favorable changes in learning and teaching strategies, and also it gives areas of opportunity to improve the outcomes. So, that's information that I can share with you about the five principles.
It is a relevant information, Tatiana. So, well, the next question is for Armando, okay? So, Armando, what types of tests are you using currently to evaluate language teaching skills? Great, Jose. So, there are different types of tests, but I'm gonna focus in three of them, okay? So, the first one is informal test. Informal test is basically the activity that you do every single day in the classroom, okay? So you provide activities, you provide exercise, you provide different resources, and with those kind of resources, you are able to understand if the learners, understand or not the topic. Okay, so it is this kind of test is very important to your routine. The second one is placement and achievement. This kind of test is focused most of the time in the prior knowledge that the student have. Okay, so in that way you need to create a test, and with that kind of test try to understand what do you need to cover, okay, in the classroom. Basically it is about that. And the next one is proficiency test. It is the most common. This kind of test, grade all your abilities in the language, in the second language, in this case in English, and show us a result to identify what do you need to solve, what do you need to improve. Okay. Awesome, Armando. So basically, I didn't really know how many type of tests exist, but now, as you mentioned before, it's pretty important to take into account that. Nice, thank you so much. So the next question for you is, what do you think that the language teacher should assess classroom activities? What do you think about that? Well, that's right. It's pretty necessary to all the teacher or most of the teacher assess different activities in the classroom, because it is the only way that you know if the learners acquire the knowledge or not. Okay, if the learners understand the topic or not. Okay, so for instance, if you have a group of 10 people and you provide a test, but 8 out of 10 lost the grade, what's wrong? What's wrong? Okay, so basically you need to take into account if something happened with your strategy, if something happened with your methodology, or what happened with the students. Okay, so in that way it's pretty necessary to create different assessment in the classroom. Okay, nice. So and now we're going to continue with Tatiana. Okay, so Tatiana, the next question is for you. The question is, how do you assess listening skills?
Okay, guys. Well, in regards to the how can we assess listening as a teachers, so we need to take into account some characteristics that the students may have in order to have like a good grade in a listening skill assessment. So first, they need to comprehend of surface structure elements such as phonemes, words, intonation, or a grammatical category for a text. Also understand pragmatic context, determine meaning of auditory input, and develop the gist or global or comprehensive understanding about the recording that they may hear. Also, the listening test typically resembles reading comprehension test, except that the students listen to a passage instead of reading it. Also, the students then answered like multiple choice questions that address various levels of literal and inferential comprehension. The most important elements in a listening test are the listening stimuli, the questions, and the test environment. The most listening tests that are used nowadays are multiple choice, filling gaps, transcription, and detection.
Great, Tatiana. So, ladies and gentlemen, something important that you need to take into account and pay attention about Tatiana mentioned before is that there are different methodologies or strategies to assess listening. Pretty important. Thank you so much, Tatiana. Okay, nice, Tatiana. So, and now we're going to continue with the next question. It is a tough question because speaking it's really difficult skills to improve. So, the question is, how do you assess a speaking skill?
Well, guys, in order to assess the speaking skills, I consider that is probably one of the biggest challenges compared to the other three language skills, because you as a teacher you have to pay attention to some aspects such as fluency, pronunciation, vocabulary, accuracy, interaction, and communication. So basically, one of the most important tests or the most that are used by teachers are like role plays, read aloud task, a dialogue or a completion of a task, question and answer, giving instructions, also paraphrasing, doing some interviews, also are just discussions and conversations, games, oral presentations, storytelling, in some cases reported speech, like it is used in some proficiency test. So thank you, Jose, for your invitation today. I'm really glad to be here. I hope you have a great day. Take care.
Thank you so much, Tatiana, for your answers. So, and now we're gonna continue with the last question. Okay, this question is for Armando. So, Armando, how do you assess reading skills? Okay, so I'll expose three different ways to assess reading skills. So the first one is basically the most traditional. Okay, so the teacher put an article and you need to answer those kind of questions according to the article. Those kind of questions could be closed or open questions, depends on your level. Okay, so the second one is basically create a graphic organizer, comparative chart, mind map, or something like this. And with that kind of activities, the teacher are able to understand if you have or not the knowledge, okay, if you understand or not the reading. And the third one is basically the idea that you read an article and with your own words try to expose that, okay. So basically those are the ways to assess the reading skills. Nice, Tatiana and Armando. So this is the last part of the program. So thank you, Tatiana. Thank you, Armando, to be here. I really appreciate all your answers. It's pretty important those kind of knowledge. So, ladies and gentlemen, see you next Friday. On time. So bye bye. Have a good night. This was GGC Reflective Teaching with your host Jose. Bye bye again.